The tensions between Iran and Israel have reached their most dangerous point in decades following a series of unprecedented attacks that have fundamentally altered the dynamics of their long-running conflict. What was once a shadow war fought through proxies and covert operations has now erupted into direct military confrontation, raising fears of a wider regional war that could draw in global powers and destabilize the entire Middle East. The current crisis began with a deadly Israeli airstrike on April 1 that targeted Iran's consulate in Damascus, Syria. This attack, which killed 7 senior commanders of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, including 2 generals, represented a significant escalation in Israel's campaign against Iranian military assets in the region. Iran's leadership vowed swift and severe retaliation, setting the stage for what would become the first-ever direct Iranian missile and drone attack on Israeli territory. On the night of April 13, Iran made good on its threats by launching an unprecedented barrage of more than 300 missiles and drones toward Israel. The attack included sophisticated ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and explosive-laden drones that took different flight paths to overwhelm Israeli defenses. This massive assault represented a dramatic shift in Iran's strategy, marking its transition from relying solely on proxy forces to directly engaging its archenemy. Israel's multi-layered air defense system, developed over decades with substantial U.S. assistance, proved remarkably effective against the Iranian onslaught. Working in coordination with American, British, French and Jordanian forces, Israeli defenses intercepted approximately 99% of the incoming threats. The Arrow system handled ballistic missiles, while David's Sling and Patriot batteries took out cruise missiles, and fighter jets destroyed drones before they could reach their targets. This defensive success demonstrated Israel's technological edge but also revealed Iran's growing missile capabilities. The international response to Iran's attack was swift and largely unified. The United States immediately reaffirmed its ironclad commitment to Israel's security, while European nations condemned Iran's aggression. Even some Arab states that normally oppose Israel quietly assisted in intercepting the Iranian projectiles, reflecting their shared concern about Iranian expansionism in the region. Israel's response came just 6 days later, on April 19, with a carefully calibrated strike on a military airbase near the Iranian city of Isfahan. The attack, reportedly carried out by Israeli drones and possibly missiles, targeted radar systems and air defenses while deliberately avoiding nuclear facilities and population centers. Iran's leadership downplayed the incident, claiming the drones were destroyed before causing significant damage and choosing not to respond with additional attacks, at least for the moment. This exchange of fire has fundamentally changed the rules of engagement between Iran and Israel. For over 40 years, their conflict has been fought through proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and various Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. Now, both nations have demonstrated their willingness to strike directly at each other's territory, crossing psychological and strategic red lines that had previously contained their rivalry. The regional consequences of this escalation are already being felt across the Middle East. In Lebanon, Hezbollah has intensified its daily rocket and missile attacks against northern Israel, while Israeli airstrikes have targeted Hezbollah positions deeper inside Lebanese territory. The Houthi rebels in Yemen, another Iranian proxy, continue their campaign against international shipping in the Red Sea, disrupting global trade and forcing major rerouting of commercial vessels. In Gaza, ceasefire negotiations remain stalled as Hamas, emboldened by Iranian support, maintains its hardline positions. The economic impacts are spreading far beyond the Middle East. Global oil markets remain jittery, with prices fluctuating based on fears that Iran might attempt to block the Strait of Hormuz, through which about 20% of the world's oil passes. Shipping insurance costs have skyrocketed for vessels operating in the region, while major airlines have cancelled or rerouted flights to avoid potential airspace conflicts. These disruptions come at a sensitive time for the global economy, still recovering from pandemic-related shocks and dealing with inflationary pressures. Perhaps most concerning are the nuclear dimensions of this crisis. Iran continues to enrich uranium to near weapons-grade levels while expanding its stockpiles, bringing it closer than ever to potential nuclear weapons capability. Israeli leaders have repeatedly stated they will not allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons, raising the specter of possible Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, an action that could trigger full-scale war. The recent attacks have only heightened these concerns, with some analysts warning that Iran may accelerate its nuclear program in response to Israeli aggression. The United States finds itself in a delicate position, torn between its unwavering support for Israel and its desire to prevent a wider regional war that could draw in American forces. President Biden has walked a fine line, helping Israel defend against Iranian attacks while urging restraint in response. This balancing act becomes even more complicated in an election year, with domestic political considerations influencing foreign policy decisions. The upcoming U.S. elections add another layer of uncertainty, as a potential change in administration could significantly alter America's approach to both Iran and Israel. Looking ahead, the immediate future appears fraught with danger. Intelligence agencies warn of continued covert operations, cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure, assassinations of military and nuclear scientists, and increased activity by proxy groups throughout the region. The risk of miscalculation is extremely high, as an isolated incident could quickly spiral out of control given the heightened tensions and military posturing on both sides. Several potential flashpoints bear close watching in the coming weeks and months. First is the situation along Israel's northern border with Lebanon, where daily exchanges of fire between Israel and Hezbollah could escalate into full-scale war. Second are Iran's nuclear facilities, which could become targets if diplomatic efforts to restrain Tehran's program fail. Third is the Red Sea, where Houthi attacks on shipping could provoke stronger international military responses. Finally, the ongoing conflict in Gaza remains a wild card, with the potential to trigger wider violence depending on how ceasefire negotiations progress. The international community faces significant challenges in trying to de-escalate the situation. Diplomatic efforts at the United Nations have been hampered by great power rivalries, with Russia and China unwilling to support strong measures against Iran. European nations are divided in their approach, torn between concerns about Iranian aggression and fears of provoking further conflict. Regional powers like Saudi Arabia and Turkey are attempting to mediate while also protecting their own interests. As the situation stands today, the Middle East finds itself in its most precarious position since the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003. The direct confrontation between Iran and Israel has shattered long-standing taboos and created new realities on the ground. While both sides may have stepped back from the brink for now, the underlying tensions remain unresolved, and the risk of catastrophic miscalculation persists. The world watches with growing concern as these longtime adversaries navigate this dangerous new phase of their conflict, with the stability of the entire region hanging in the balance.